Hurricane Barry has made a landfall in Louisiana. Streets and power lines were uprooted as winds running at 75 miles per hour made their way across New Orleans. Streets and businesses were flooded as heavy rains in the area lashed the city. Even though the hurricane weakened while approaching the shores, it is expected to gain in strength as the day progresses. A state of emergency has been declared in Louisiana. Residents are being asked to stock up provisions, look out for shelter and stay vigilant. Widespread power outages were reported in parts of New York City's Manhattan borough on Saturday. Subway stations got affected and street lights were out in the Upper West Side. It was also reported that the lights went out only after explosion was heard. A New York City Fire Department spokesperson said the cause of the outage was being investigated. The China media group has described China's imposing of sanctions on the U.S. enterprises as the sovereign country's resolve to defend its core national interests. China had imposed sanctions on the U.S. companies involved in the $2.2 billion arms sales to Taiwan. The article said that Taiwan was an inalienable part of China. It is said that the arms deal American companies were not simply business deals, but it undermined China's sovereignty and national security. The article also has discussed the U.S. of treating Taiwan as a cash cow to fulfill the interests of its arms dealers. The police of the U.S. state of California has released a video of a teen girl shot dead by an officer. In the footage, 17-year-old Hannah Williams can be seen pointing a gun at the police officer. The fake gun can later be seen lying next to Williams' body. Police released the video after the teen's family raised questions over the circumstances surrounding her death. The incident happened on July 5th. According to the police, the officer tried to stop Williams' speeding car. Williams later confronted him with the replica gun, prompting the shooting. Hundreds of protesters have gathered in San Diego demanding the complete shutdown of migrant detention centers in San Diego's San Ysidro district. Protesters filled the streets demanding better living conditions of immigrant children and families. They also demanded that migrant detention camps at the U.S.-Mexico border completely shut down. Protesters holding signs that close the camps, free the kids, lock up Trump filled the streets of the Californian city. American expats joined Mexicans outside the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City to protest the treatment of migrants in detention centers. On Friday, the protest comes after a government watchdog found dangerous overcrowding at a border patrol facility in Texas. U.S. officials say they have been overwhelmed by thousands of mostly Central Americans crossing into the United States and turning themselves over to border agents. Protesters are calling for a more humane immigration system in the U.S. and to end the automatic detention of migrants as well. Unidentified men have attacked a TV channel office in Ukraine using a grenade launcher. The attack is being described as an act of terrorism by Ukrainian police officials. A grenade launcher was abandoned at the scene. Police officers have now tightened security controls in the capital Kiev in a bid to detain the person, in fact, who was responsible for this attack. This attack comes just before the channel was set to air a controversial documentary featuring Russian President Vladimir Putin. The channel's director issued a statement following the attack, asking President Volodymyr Zelensky to take action against those responsible. At least 26 people have now been killed in a terrorist attack in Somalia's Kismayo city on Saturday. The hotel attack lasted 11 hours. Gunmen stormed the city's popular Medina hotel after detonating a car bomb outside the building. Authorities say at least 56 people have been injured in the attack. Al-Qaeda-linked Islamist group Al-Shabaab immediately claimed responsibility for the attack. Thousands of people demonstrated in cities across Sudan on Saturday to mark 40 days since security forces killed dozens in protest camps in the capital Khartoum. Demonstrators were the first since the ruling military council and civilian opposition agreed in principle to a power-sharing arrangement ahead of elections. The deal is yet to be finalized and signed. A mass demonstration was organized in support of Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro. The support from Maduro comes after a UN report that slammed the human rights violation by current administration. A report was published after the visit of UN Human Rights Chief. The Maduro administration has, however, rejected the report as false. Protesters gathered in an East Jerusalem neighborhood on Friday to protest against the eviction of a Palestinian family. The protest came after the Israel police forced a Palestinian family out of their house in the neighborhood 2 days before. This is in the wake of a controversial Israeli law giving the green light to more Jewish settlements in Palestinian neighborhoods. Boris Johnson, frontrunner or to be Britain's next Prime Minister, displayed his playful side recently. That's right, he operated a forklift during his campaign tour to the country's top job. A former London mayor was on a visit to a tree nursery in Essex when he decided to give it a go and sit behind the wheel of the industrial truck. Remember, Johnson and Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt are locked in a battle to succeed Theresa May, who resigned as Prime Minister after failing to get parliamentary approval to withdraw the Brexit deal from EU. New Zealand organized its very first firearm buyback event on Saturday. Now this comes 4 months after the deadly Christchurch mosque shooting that killed over 50 people. New Zealand police have arranged 258 events over the next 3 months to buy back newly banned semi-automatic weapons from owners. This after the country swung into action and enforced strict gun control laws. The first event took place just a few kilometers away from the targeted mosque in Christchurch, where people handed over their guns to the police in return of cash. At least one person has been killed as floods wreak havoc across the Rohingya refugee camp in Bangladesh's Cox's Bazar. Thousands of refugees have been displaced as monsoon rains trigger floods and landslides. The UN has launched an aid program in the camp to assist over 10,000 refugees. Rohingya refugees have been working to secure the hills which surround the camp, using sandbags to prevent further landslides. At the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing, New York's, auction is bringing in artifacts from the mission and other moon trips. At Christie's auction, the highlight is going to be the lunar module timeline book of the first moon landers, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. The auction house expects the book to bid up to $9 million. Another exclusive treasure up will be for auction a camera lens brush that was used on the lunar surface during the Apollo 14 mission to the moon. city of Rome is facing an unusual garbage crisis, so much so that the city's chief physician has issued a hygiene alert. Residents and tourists of Italy's capital have been navigating streets filled with overflowing garbage bins for days now. City's chief physician Antonio Maggi has issued a hygiene alert. Speaking to a news agency, he said that the alert could be upgraded to a serious health warning. Residents have been warned about the spread of disease through animal waste and insects. Cuba's first new train passenger cars is in more than 4 decades set off on their maiden journey across the island on Thursday. Now, this government hopes the step will prove a total revamp of its decrepit railway system with help from allies Russia and China. Cuba's railway system, launched in the 1830s, is one of the oldest in the world, but it has suffered from a lack of maintenance and new equipment in a cash-strapped economy under a crippling U.S. trade embargo. A Belt and Road themed dragon boat race kicked off in Lithuania, drawing 40 international teams and a huge number of spectators. Nearly 1,000 contestants from countries including China, Germany, Poland, Latvia, Lithuania took part in the race. The Chinese ambassador to Lithuania, Shen Zhifi, attended the opening ceremony and delivered a speech. Egypt's opened the bent pyramid built for Pharaoh, a 101-meter structure to visitors. Finally, this marks a key step in the evolution of pyramid construction. Tourists will now be able to clamber down a 79-meter narrow tunnel from a raised entrance of the pyramid's northern face to reach deep inside the 4,600-year-old structure. The promotion of this is a part of a wider push to boost tourism, an important source of foreign revenue for Egypt that dipped steeply after the country's 2011 uprising before gradually recovering. It's the 8th day of the annual San Fermin festival in the Spanish city of Pamplona, and 5 people have already been injured. Each morning from July 7th to July 14th, thousands of people take over the narrow streets of the medieval city, running with the bulls. Bred aggressive bulls raced to the city's bull ring, with crowd running alongside trying to dodge horns and stampeding hooves. People in Manhattan got to see a fantastic MANHATTANHENGE sunset. That's when the grid of Manhattan streets lines up perfectly with the setting sun. It happens 4 times a year, but it is only visible when the western horizon is free of clouds. People risk being hit by cars to get a shot of the sunset in the middle of the street, where the intersection of the sun and the street is most pronounced. The Sweet Art Museum is all now open to the Brazilian public. The museum has the motto of "Come and be happy." Known as the sweetest museum in the world, the unusual pop-up museum is a world of art and fantasy with exclusive surprises. Dozens of volunteers in Mexico City gathered in parks and avenues on Saturday to plant trees. The event was launched by the Ministry of Environment as part of the Green Challenge initiative to battle pollution. Reforestation program was launched in June, and aims to plant 10 million trees by November 2020. The megapolis has long been facing a battle with the effect of pollution.
Ahí está.
Medical science is no stranger to miracles, and one such incident happened in China where a girl who had no heartbeat for 6 days escaped death and also received a transplant. A 10-year-old girl who was admitted in a Shanghai hospital was able to survive due to life-saving equipment. Doctors said that the young girl was admitted with symptoms of chest tightness, shortness of breath, vomiting and low fever. Medical examinations confirm acute carditis or inflammation of the heart.